I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president, and this is, as you can see, another On the Road Again commentary. I'm coming back from the Massachusetts Libertarian Party event last night, which was held on Friday night. I'm here driving along to the New York Libertarian Party State Convention on Saturday, March 16th. So I got a little time here, 5 or 6 hours, to give you one of my famous political commentaries on the convention last night. I thought I'd first preface this, though. I think some of you might be wondering, maybe, why I haven't been doing my hiking commentaries with my princess, my golden retriever Cassie. And I thought, well, I will explain what happened. A couple months ago, she was playing in the snow, which she absolutely loves, and took a nasty slide and spill, running full speed. And when she got home, she was limping really bad. And it got so bad that she looked at the stairs of my townhouse in which I live, and she shook her head and said, "No way," when she was in really bad pain. So I took her to the emergency room, and they diagnosed a torn ACL, or the dog's counterpart to the ACL, and then gave her some painkillers, which helped out a lot. And then I took her to my vet, and my vet said, well, she looks like a minor tear, so let's see if it heals on its own without surgery. So that was a little over 2 months ago, and she's really healing nicely. She now is able to walk with full weight on her paws. It was the right rear. But when she stands up, she still limps a little bit, so it's clearly not totally healed. And so that's why I haven't taken her out in the country, out in the woods. As y'all know from previous commentaries, I let her run free. I trained her myself, and she comes back to me when I recall her. So she chases deer and squirrels and foxes and all sorts of things, and so I can't let her do that right now. But I'll be returning to my In the Woods commentaries, probably about 3 weeks or so. I think she'll be fully healed by that time. So the Massachusetts event was really a fascinating deal. It was totally unlike any other Libertarian Party event, and it was totally unexpected. It was quite a shock, and it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. For one thing, everybody was very nice again, as they had been. We have a real spate of nice Libertarian Party events here, and they treated us to dinner. It was really nice to feel welcomed like that, and it's like they're appreciative that we're there. And I forget how many candidates are there, but it was pretty many. I'd say 7, 8, something like that. And we have our differences on the debate stage, but we've all gotten to be pretty good friends here, and we're kind of like, there's a camaraderie that's developed between all of us. We're all going to the same conventions, or pretty much the same conventions. So what they did last night, they had the event in a restaurant, and they rented out a room in the restaurant where there were booths all along the walls of this room, and that's where people were to eat. They had the plates and the silverware and stuff on the booths. They had flat tables in the middle, but people weren't supposed to use those. They were just supposed to use the booths. And I don't know, it's maybe 40, 50 people, just close estimate. And then there was no stage, there was no debate or forum or anything like that. What it was designed to do is that each of the presidential candidates would go to each table and explain to the people sitting there at the table, what his campaign is all about. So you essentially, it wasn't a one-on-one experience, but it was close to it, like 1-on-3 or 1-on-4, and it was really a great opportunity to be able to explain what you wanted to do, what your vision was for a presidential campaign, and answer any questions, and then they would rotate to the next table. So I essentially said the same thing that I've been saying at every state convention, and that is that what we've been doing in our presidential campaigns for the last 20 years is a bad direction, a super bad direction, because number one, it can't garner votes. It does not garner votes. But the message we've been putting out violates our own core principles. I mean, we call ourselves the party of principle, and yet we've been running presidential campaigns that violate our principles. How can this be successful? And it's not successful. There's no constituency out there for this message. We're now down to 0% in the polls. That's down from 1.1% 3 years ago. And people in the party say, oh, this is a great opportunity because people hate Biden and Trump. The polls are not reflecting that. The 0%, there's actually a 0 next to Libertarian Party. In the latest poll put out by California State University, people are saying there, we don't care how much we hate Trump or Biden, we're still not voting for your message of libertarian socialism. And that's what it is. It's a message of libertarian socialism. Socialism is the antithesis of freedom. It's the opposite of freedom. So as I was pointing out at each table I went to last night, that all of my opponents are going with the flow that's been going on in this party for at least 20 years. They want to continue Social Security, which is the crown jewel of American socialism, for the next 25 years. Imagine a 25-year plan for achieving freedom. Who's going to vote for that kind of plan? I mean, I wouldn't vote for that kind of plan. I vote libertarian to get our numbers up, but I reject this plan as much as the 99% or now 100% of voters reject it. It's just a bad message. I want freedom now, not 25 years from now, and I don't want to live under socialism for the next 25 years. But my opponents say, oh, well, no, Jacob, people die in the streets if you immediately repeal these socialist programs. Nonsense. Freedom works. And we need to lead America in the restoration of faith and freedom and belief in freedom and free markets and voluntary charity. This country lived without socialism for more than 100 years, and there weren't people dying in the streets. This is what leadership involves, is standing for what's right and then making the case for what's right. And that's how we lead America. That's our job in this party, to lead America to freedom. And you're not going to lead America to freedom by advocating socialism. Now, there's also America's system of immigration controls, which, like Social Security and Medicare and school vouchers and the rest of them, are based on the initiation of force. Social Security takes money from one person through the coercive apparatus of taxation. There's no pool, there's no fund, there never has been. It's a straight socialist program that uses force, the initiation of force, to take money from one person and give it to another person. Same with school vouchers. These are all just socialist principles that violate our core principle. And my opponents say, oh, well, this shows how good and caring and compassionate they are, that they want to continue this program for 25 years. How can care and compassion be reflected through the initiation of force? I mean, all you're doing is being good with money that's been stolen from the young and the productive and giving it to seniors. That's not care and compassion. Care and compassion is what comes out of the willing heart of the individual. And that's what we need to restore. Same thing with school vouchers, which my opponents favor, or taking over the government school system, which is a massive socialist enterprise. They feel like, oh, well, it's important to show Americans that libertarians can run socialism better than Democrats and Republicans. This is pure nonsense. This is contrary to our principles. And if you look at immigration controls, which I brought up at every table, all my opponents favor this system. I mean, that's the trend in this party now, to move toward the right wing and copy the Republicans, follow the Republicans. Well, I guarantee you, you're not going to lead America to freedom by copying and following Republicans. It's never going to happen. And this program, like the other programs, the socialist programs, is based on the socialist principle of central planning. And as Ludwig von Mises pointed out, central planning always brings planned chaos. But it comes with more than planned chaos. It comes with crisis, death, suffering, and a massive police state. Highway checkpoints, a Berlin Wall, concertina wire, warrantless searches, making felons out of people that care for immigrants, that even give immigrants a bottle of water on the side of a highway when they're dying of thirst. They'll indict you in a felony offense. But what my opponents fail to recognize, and what so many Americans fail to recognize, is that the entire crisis that they lament is rooted in the system itself. In other words, the immigration control system, which is based on the socialist principle of central planning, produces the crisis. That's the cause of the crisis. It's like the drug war. There's a drug war crisis, cartels, violence, and so forth. You don't resolve that crisis by cracking down even more. You resolve the crisis by legalizing drugs. Same thing with immigration. Abolish all the restrictions on the free movements of people, and the crisis goes away. I mean, people are like talking about, the latest thing is, oh, the free hotels, the free hotels. Well, that's part of their system. See, they don't recognize that it's their system that they favor that is producing the problem of the free hotels. Because when immigrants come in, which they always will, immigrants will always try to save their lives. They'll try to pursue happiness. It's just something inherent to a lot of human beings that when faced with death, they tend to escape and come to a place where there's opportunity to save their lives and prosper. And then you make it a felony for them to work, or a felony for American employers to hire them, or to rent buildings to them, because that's called harboring, or transporting, give them a ride somewhere, or just to care for them. Then where are they supposed to work? And then you've got this green card system that's also part of this whole system. How are they supposed to work? What are they supposed to do? Just die of the elements? And so that's when the government says, oh, I guess we have to do something here to save their lives. But with open borders, government plays no role at all. People come in, they find jobs. If they can't find a job, they go back home. It's like open borders between the states. People cross borders between the states all the time. They move to Austin, Texas. They hear it's prosperous. They're going to look for a job. If they don't find a job, they go back to California from where they came. I mean, that's the way markets work. It's the way freedom works. And this is where we need to lead America. And I told every table last night, I said, the common belief in this party among the right wing is that since most Americans favor immigration controls, and there's no doubt that that's the case, that's going to be a big vote getter for a libertarian presidential candidate who favors immigration controls, which is all of my opponents. Pure nonsense. They haven't thought it through. They haven't analyzed it. The immigration position of my opponents garners 0 votes, except inside the party. Every proponent of immigration controls inside the party will vote for an LP presidential candidate that favors immigration controls. But out there, 0 votes. 0. And that's where we are in the polls, at 0. Because every single right-wing proponent of immigration controls is going to vote for Donald Trump. Without exception. Trump's going to be saying, oh, they're going to steal the votes from it again. Please flood the ballot boxes to overcome the rigging of the system. They're going to try to steal it again. Every MAGA person is going to vote for Donald Trump. He's never going to waste his vote on an LP presidential candidate who favors immigration controls. That's why it's an albatross. It's a liability, this position. It's not an asset. And even if there are some disaffected MAGA people, they're going to vote for Bobby Kennedy. And of course, the left-wing proponents of immigration controls are going to vote for Biden. They would never vote for a libertarian. So it's a total loser in terms of votes. And as I said last night, we're not a debating society. We're not a membership organization. Our job is to lead America to freedom, and in the process, garner a large number of votes. What about my position? Open borders. It's a vote getter, because there are countless people along the border that hate what's going on. I know this. I lived 30 years, more than 30 years on the border. There's people that hate the Border Patrol. They hate the concertina wire. Those are my voters. There's people in churches all across America that are horrified by how the U.S. government is treating our fellow man with this system, the socialist system of immigration controls, and the police state, the deaths, the suffering, the concertina wire. Those are my voters. I get every single voter that is looking for leadership, that is looking for an alternative. A lot of them don't even know there's an alternative. But if you make the case for open borders, they will leap into my camp and vote for me. So I garner all those votes, which can propel us into the polls. It's the only shot there is, because we're at 0% right now, doing the same thing we've been doing for 20 years now. To achieve a major breakout in votes, which I say is entirely possible, we need to change directions completely. Now, those of you that have attended the state conventions know that I distribute packets there. I believe in the power of ideas, and these packets contain some articles that I've written that explain my position of why it's necessary to restore our founding principles in this party and to reject socialism. Well, I've just added 2 new flyers to the packets. One is a flyer that has 4 books on it on open borders, so that people that are interested can read these 4 books, and I will guarantee you read all 4 of these books, and I'm 99% certain you will become an advocate of open borders. And one is my book that I co-edited called The Case for Free Trade and Open Immigration. They're all available at Amazon. Another one is The Case for Open Borders by John Washington. That came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's a journalist from Tucson. Best book on immigration I think I've ever read. Addresses every single objection to open borders there is, and does it competently and eloquently and expertly. And then there's Open Borders by Brian Kaplan, the brilliant economics professor, libertarian at George Mason University, which has the best libertarian free market Austrian economics program in the country, in my opinion. And then there is the fourth book, is a book by Jason Riley, who was, and possibly still is, a member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, called Let Them In, The Case for Open Borders. So I want to expose everybody to these 4 books. So I've got a new flyer in there, color, with the covers of all these 4 books as a reference. And then I've got a quote in there by the famous German theologian, philosopher Albert Schweitzer, that really expresses how I want to run a campaign. It's a great quote. It's something to the effect of, we've got to start a new public opinion in this country to change directions that goes from word of mouth, one person to another person to another person, and reject the vehicles of propaganda that come out of the mainstream press, because we're never going to have that kind of money in this party for our campaigns. And so, like Schweitzer says, we need the natural method of transmitting ideas that goes from person to person, and that's the perfect example is immigration. If migrant families in this country learn that there's a presidential candidate that's favoring open borders, I guarantee you that's going to spread like wildfire across the migrant community. Those are my voters. That's what will propel us into the polls. So that was essentially the message that I gave at each table, and it was a great event. I want to thank everybody in the Massachusetts LP for coming out for it, for hosting us, for treating us so nicely. And now I'm heading to the New York State Convention, where we're going to have a debate on Sunday morning, tomorrow morning. That's my report. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for your great support of my campaign. I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. My campaign website is jacobforliberty.com.